There are moments in life when everything seems to crumble at once. Money disappears, opportunities vanish, and even the people you once trusted step back as if failure were contagious. In those moments, it becomes dangerously easy to look at yourself and believe that you are poor. But true poverty has never been about the weight of your wallet. It is rooted in the weakness of your mindset. A person with nothing can still walk with the posture of someone destined for greatness, while a person with everything can collapse the moment their illusions are shattered. What separates the two is not wealth, it is will. When you start to think of yourself as poor, you surrender your authority over your life. You unconsciously begin to shrink in front of others, your decisions become timid, and your ambitions begin to dissolve. You start accepting crumbs from a world that hands out power only to those who act as if they already possess it. This is why the greatest danger in life is not losing material things. The greatest danger is allowing that loss to infect your mind. A person whose mind remains unbroken is never truly poor, because they carry something that cannot be taken from them: the ability to rebuild. Power, ambition, discipline, strategy, resilience, these are forms of wealth far more valuable than gold, because they do not depend on circumstances. They depend on you. A strong mind can walk through the ashes of failure and still see the blueprint of an empire. A weak mind can stand in a palace and still fear losing everything. To refuse the identity of poverty is to protect the throne of your self-worth. Even when your reality is difficult, even when you are surrounded by lack, you can choose to think in terms of possibility rather than limitation. This is not delusion, it is discipline. It is refusing to let circumstances define the boundaries of your potential. When you think of yourself as poor, you stop planning, you stop fighting, you stop believing. But when you see yourself as powerful, no matter how empty your pockets are, you take actions that align with growth instead of despair. The world often mirrors what you believe about yourself. If you carry yourself like someone defeated, people will treat you as replaceable. If you carry yourself like someone who is only experiencing a temporary setback, people will sense your confidence, even if they cannot explain it. Wealth begins in the mind long before it appears in reality. If your thoughts remain strong, if your vision remains uncompromised, and if your actions remain firm, nothing in the world can truly hold you in a state of poverty. Life will always test you with moments designed to bend your will. Circumstances will rise like storms, stripping away comfort, certainty, and confidence. Most people surrender at the first sign of pressure, because they believe hardship is a signal to stop. But power does not come to those who retreat when the world tightens its grip. Power comes to those who refuse to bow, even when everything around them demands submission. Strength is not measured when life is kind. It is revealed when life becomes merciless. When you face adversity with an unshaken posture, you communicate something profound to the world. You are not controlled by the situation. You are controlled by your decision. People notice this. They sense it. They respect it. Even those who hope for your downfall secretly admire the fact that you do not collapse under weight that would break others. This is why refusing to bow to circumstances becomes a source of influence. It changes how people speak to you, how they negotiate with you, and how they perceive your worth. Circumstances are temporary, but the impression your strength leaves on others can last a lifetime. In moments of chaos, most individuals panic, freeze, or search for someone stronger to follow. If you remain composed, confident, and strategic, you naturally become that person. You become the anchor others look to. Not because you possess material wealth or perfect conditions, but because you hold your ground when it matters most. The one who does not bow becomes the one others instinctively trust, fear, or follow. Refusing to bow is not about arrogance. It is about clarity. It is understanding that circumstances are merely environments, not verdicts. They shift, break, and rebuild, but your response to them shapes everything that comes afterward. If you bow to difficulty, you accept the role of someone defeated. If you stand tall, you write the next chapter on your own terms. The world has always belonged to individuals who maintain their composure in storms, not to those who collapse when lightning strikes. There will be moments when no one supports you, when the people you believed in abandon you, when the world seems indifferent to your struggle. In those moments, the temptation to bow becomes stronger, but your refusal in that moment becomes your transformation. It teaches you that you can carry yourself even when no one else carries you. It reminds you that courage is built in silence long before it is recognized in success. Strength is a posture long before it becomes a result. When you refuse to bow to circumstances, you are silently training yourself to become ungoverned by fear. You learn to make decisions based on strategy rather than emotion. You discover that pressure sharpens awareness, adversity clarifies priorities, and hardship exposes who you truly are. The world ultimately gravitates toward those who stand firm, because stability is rare and resilience is magnetic. In every society, in every era, those who rise are not always the strongest, the richest, or the most talented. More often, they are the ones who understand a crucial truth: perception shapes power. The world does not treat you according to who you truly are. It treats you according to the story you allow others to believe about you. This is why controlling the narrative of your life becomes one of the most strategic forms of strength. When you decide how you want to be seen, capable, composed, intelligent, resilient, you influence how others interact with you long before you have achieved anything tangible. Most people make the mistake of letting their circumstances define the story. They allow failure to make them timid, scarcity to make them doubtful, and criticism to make them small. Without realizing it, they hand control of their identity to the world. But the wise understand that perception can be shaped, crafted, and directed. Even in a moment of weakness, you can project stability. Even in a moment of loss, you can project determination. And when people begin to see you through this lens, opportunities open that would never have appeared if you walked around displaying your fears. Controlling the narrative does not mean pretending to be something you are not. It means choosing which part of yourself you allow the world to see. Everyone has doubts, insecurities, and days filled with uncertainty, but displaying them publicly gives others power over you. When you remain calm, speak with intention, and act with confidence, you create an impression that becomes more influential than your circumstances. People believe what they consistently see, and if you show them discipline, strength, and clarity, that becomes your identity in their eyes. This is especially important when you are building yourself from nothing. If you present yourself as someone desperate, the world will treat you as desperate. If you present yourself as someone who expects nothing, the world will give you nothing. But if you carry yourself like someone who knows their path, even if that path has not manifested yet, people begin to treat you as someone with potential. They trust you more. They respect you more. They hesitate before crossing you. They sense a seriousness in you that is rare. When you control your narrative, you regain authority over your life. You stop waiting for validation, approval, or praise, and start shaping your own reputation. You learn to speak less and observe more, to reveal your plans only when necessary, and to allow your actions to speak louder than your frustration. In this way, you transform perception into a tool that works for you instead of against you. Your narrative becomes your armor. It protects you while you are growing. It shields you while you are struggling. It positions you while you are planning. And eventually, the world begins to respond not to your circumstances, but to your presence. When you master the story that surrounds your name, you no longer walk into rooms seeking permission, you walk in carrying quiet authority. Hardship is one of the few experiences that strips a person down to their core. It removes illusions, exposes weaknesses, and forces you to confront truths you might otherwise avoid. Most people fear hardship because it makes them uncomfortable, unsettled, and insecure. But hidden inside every difficulty is a unique advantage, an edge, that only reveals itself to those willing to endure rather than escape. When you learn to see hardship not as punishment, but as preparation, you turn what others run from into a source of strength that cannot be imitated. When you have nothing, your mind becomes sharper because every decision counts. You notice opportunities others overlook, not because you are lucky, but because scarcity heightens awareness. You begin to understand people more deeply because you see their intentions without distraction. You recognize who is genuine, who is manipulative, and who is silently hoping for your downfall. Hardship clears the fog. It strips away the noise. It teaches you to read situations with a clarity that comfort never provides. While others grow soft in luxury, a person shaped by difficulty becomes strategic by necessity. You learn how to adapt quickly, how to adjust your plans without losing your direction, and how to remain composed even when pressure builds. These skills become your invisible weapons. They are forged in silence, in struggle, in moments when no one is watching. People often admire the resilience of individuals who rise later in life, but what they fail to realize is that this resilience was not a gift. It was a craft shaped by hardship. There is a certain advantage in starting from nothing, one that many never understand. When you have nothing to lose, you become fearless. When you have survived what should have broken you, future obstacles lose their power. When you have walked through darkness alone, you stop fearing shadows. Hardship builds a mindset that is unshakable, one that cannot be bought, borrowed, or copied. It becomes your greatest advantage in a world where most people crumble at the first sign of discomfort. The pain you experience today becomes the wisdom you use tomorrow. The scarcity you endure transforms into creativity. The silence you suffer becomes focus. Hardship forces you to understand yourself, your desires, and your purpose with a depth that comfort can never teach. It reveals your capacity for discipline. It demands that you confront your excuses. It forces you to separate what truly matters from what merely distracts you. When you convert hardship into your edge, you stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start seeing yourself as a strategist shaped by them. You use what you have learned to outthink, outlast, and outperform those who never had to struggle. You realize that while others were protected, you were prepared. While they were sheltered, you were sharpened. And while they rely on external strength, you rely on the internal power carved out of every difficult moment you survived. Most people believe wealth begins the moment money enters their hands. But the truth is far more demanding. Wealth begins in the mind long before it ever appears in a bank account. It begins with discipline, your ability to command yourself, control your impulses, and direct your life with precision, even when no reward is in sight. Money does not create discipline. Discipline creates the conditions for money to appear, grow, and stay. Without discipline, even a fortune can evaporate. With discipline, even a small opportunity can turn into something powerful. Discipline is the unseen foundation of every empire. It shapes your habits, your decisions, your priorities, and your direction. When you are disciplined, you do not make choices based on mood. You make them based on purpose. You do not wait for motivation. You act out of responsibility. You do not chase distractions. You focus on what creates long-term strength. This mindset becomes a form of wealth in itself, because it ensures that no matter how little you start with, you eventually rise above those who rely only on talent or luck. People who believe they are poor often justify their lack of discipline. They claim they will become serious when they have more money, more time, or better circumstances. But that mindset guarantees they remain stuck. Discipline is not something you adopt after success. It is the reason success arrives in the first place. It shows up in small decisions: how you manage your time, how you handle your emotions, how you treat opportunities, how you speak to yourself, and how you respond when life becomes difficult. These small choices either build your future or quietly destroy it. When you live with discipline, you begin creating order in areas where others live with chaos. You develop habits that sharpen your mind. You learn how to manage what you have instead of complaining about what you lack. You build a structure that supports growth even when progress seems slow. Discipline teaches you patience, and patience is often the difference between those who rise and those who quit right before their breakthrough. The world respects a disciplined person. Even in silence, discipline radiates strength. People trust you more because they sense stability in your actions. Opportunities come to you not because you are lucky, but because you have prepared yourself to recognize and hold them. When you operate with self-control, you stop reacting emotionally to life and start responding strategically. You make decisions that your future self will thank you for, not decisions that give you comfort for a few seconds and regret for years. Discipline also protects you from the illusions that trap so many people. When you are disciplined, you do not chase shortcuts, trends, or empty validation. You do not let envy poison your vision or comparison weaken your confidence. You work in silence, think clearly, and move with intention. This consistency becomes a form of wealth more valuable than money, because it cannot be stolen, taken, or replaced. Eventually, the discipline you practice becomes visible in your results. What was once internal becomes external. What once felt difficult becomes automatic. What once required force becomes part of your identity. And long before you acquire material wealth, you develop the character, habits, and mental strength needed to keep it. Wealth built on discipline does not crumble because it is rooted in who you are, not what you own. When life pushes you into moments of scarcity, it is easy to believe you are powerless. But true power has never come from possessions. It comes from the mindset you hold when everything else is taken from you. Those who refuse to accept the identity of poverty rise because they understand that strength is not born from comfort, but from the refusal to surrender. When you stand firm in adversity, shape the narrative of your life, transform hardship into advantage, and build discipline before wealth, you place yourself among the few who cannot be broken by circumstance. Nothing is more dangerous, more resilient, or more unstoppable than an individual who has nothing yet thinks and acts like someone destined for everything.